I would like to welcome you all to our webinar from the University of the West of England in Bristol, and also, of course, from MSM, who our team are all members of as well across India, Nepal and Sri Lanka. It's great to be with you in your home or in your workplace today. I'm actually at home. I'm sat in my work office at home, which I've got very used to over the last few months. And as you can see, I have my usual cup of coffee. It's in my UWE mug. I've had this mug now for about 5 years. It's beginning to get a little bit chipped, which is a bit sad, but nevertheless, it goes with me everywhere. Today, in this meeting, I hope to cover lots of things to help you talk to students regarding entry this September through till Christmas. This is a time when we have so many students joining from India, Nepal and Sri Lanka, the university. We've had many thousands of applications, and I'm really sorry that that's put us under a lot of pressure in responding to you, but we've done our best and we've had those thousands of applications, and now we're down to the hundreds who hopefully are traveling in the next few weeks. So today's, if you like, webinar is to give you as much information as possible, but not to get too serious and not to go into too much detail, because we can always answer your questions as we go through. Now, the other thing to say is this is a live webinar, and you never know. With a live webinar, where I'm based, sometimes there is a power cut and the whole thing will freeze. Well, if that happens, I will quickly switch with my technology to another machine, but I'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. So don't worry, if it does go blank, we will get back to you very quickly, but you'll be able to go and get a cup of tea or something whilst there's that little intermission. It won't be planned, but it might just happen. Today, what I'd like to start doing is just telling you a little bit about what life in the UK is like at the moment. I think it's quite important for students to be aware of that, and for when you're talking to mums and dads, and for you to be aware of it. And I guess really the truth is life in the UK is not that much different to life everywhere else at the moment. What is happening in the UK is there's no national lockdown, but there are lockdowns in districts, in areas. And what that means is there are restrictions on travel, on going to work, on those sorts of things when that does happen. But generally, nationally speaking, I have to say that people are going about their business in a normal way, and that obviously people are trying to observe social distancing, all of those things that you know about. But the key thing today is to say that air travel is now carrying on. And from India, we have Air India, British Airways and SpiceJet. And SpiceJet, not that I'm promoting them, but SpiceJet, of course, are promoting student-only flights to the UK. And I know we circulated the link to that, but if you haven't got that link, we can always provide it for you. We don't have anything to do with it. It's run by SpiceJet, but flights are running to relatively normal schedules. We'll talk a bit about when you get to the airport in the UK for students in a minute. Now, the fact is that students who are traveling from India, Sri Lanka and Nepal, they're going to have to self-isolate. Now, let me be clear about self-isolation. This is not quarantine in the sense that you have to go to any particular centre. What will happen is the students will be able to travel, and we'll talk about how they're going to travel in a minute, to the university, and they will stay in their accommodation at the university, or if they've booked an apartment or a house outside of the university, they will travel to that place. As I say, I will talk about that in a little bit. They will then spend 14 days in this self-isolation. Now, I know students are going to worry what happens in that 14 days. Well, they'll certainly access their course material online for that period, and they don't have to worry about things like food, because if they're on site, the Students' Union will be working with them in terms of actually making sure food deliveries happen. And if they're off-site, we have an organisation which is actually in Bristol and it's there for international students. It's the Bristol International Student Committee, and they are going to organise actually getting food deliveries for students who are in apartments off-site. And of course, in the UK, I don't know about in your country, I'm sure it's the same, but in the UK, people can book from supermarkets and have deliveries to the door as well. Face masks, people ask about that. Well, basically face masks have to be worn, I call them, in public confined areas, not in the street, but obviously if you're in the restaurant, the cinema, the museum, and indeed at the university itself, there will be places where people are expected indoors to wear their face mask. I'm going to talk about visas a bit later on, so let's not worry about that now, because there are some changes. They won't really affect those students who are traveling now, because those changes come into effect on October the 5th. But let's talk a little bit more about that later on. Okay, a few reminders, but before I do the reminders, just have a look at that right-hand side of the screen, because we're having a bit of a celebration. I think it's really important for you to celebrate with us. So if you haven't got something to drink, then just think you have, just imagine, because the university has now broken into the top 500 of all universities in the world. We actually are now 21st ranked in the Guardian League tables, which is one of the two major league tables in the UK. And when you think that's from over 140 universities, that's pretty pleasing. But the one I really love sharing with everybody is that our students have voted us as being the second best university for student experience, for student satisfaction in the whole of England. So, you know, when it comes to sales, I think they're worth sharing with all the applicants that you have in front of you. Okay, so all those students who are heading off to the university now, they should, if they have completed their CAS, and again, we'll just mention that later on, if they've completed their CAS, they will be actually sent a registration online document. And when they do that registration, that will mean they will be able to access Block 0, which is a 3-week online course, which is, I guess you'd say, sort of induction, sort of introducing the students to the things they need to know before they get to the UK. There is a program, they'll get that online as well once they've registered, and they'll be starting on that next week. So it actually begins on the 21st, so we're getting very close to that exciting time now. That runs all the way through until October the 16th. Now, there is, and I think this again is important, there is an opportunity if students really have major problems of travelling to the UK by the 9th of November. The 9th of November is the latest date that students should be in the UK. In some courses, it is possible for the student to request for them to actually study online for a bit longer. So, you know, if there is a student who has a visa worry, there's a delay, or if a student just can't book a flight, anything like that, the important thing is we will have a form for them to complete. They can ask for this form. Again, it'll all be done online, nothing for you to do, and then they'll be given approval and they'll be able to follow that. But it is only in some courses. But actually, for instance, the MBA is one of those courses where it's possible. So that's something, not for everybody, but something that some people will want to consider. If you get asked by the students about, well, what will university life be like? Well, university life will be pretty similar to always. There will be classes, there will be group work, there will be work in the studios, in the laboratories, in the art studios, there will be social activity, there will be restaurants and cafeteria. But those situations where many hundreds come together, those situations, of course, will change. So I'll give you an example. We often have lectures where there might be 300 or 400 students in one big lecture theatre. That cannot happen at the moment. And so what will happen is that those lectures will be delivered either as a live stream or as a recording, and then the students will discuss it in the small groups that they're working with their teachers. So the campus, life in the university, well, it's I suppose, again, a bit different. It's a bit like going to the shopping centre. There will be ways in which you have to travel around various rooms and areas of the university. Perhaps if you're using the sports centre, you might have to book to actually use a facility rather than just turning up and hopeful that you'll be able to do it. There'll be changes like that. But to be honest, they're the sorts of changes we're all getting used to across the world. We have got an airport pickup service. I'm going to talk about that later on, and we'll talk again a bit more about self-isolation. Now, all the accommodation allocations have been made. So if the student has paid their deposit for accommodation, has got their CAS, has therefore got their online UE portal, their online UE welcome, they should have been given the information about their accommodation. Now, if they haven't got that information, do let us know, because obviously we will try and follow up for you. Or indeed, they can actually email the university, accommodation@ue.ac.uk. So just accommodation and then the UE email address, and we will get that sorted out for them. On the campus itself, just when people worry about their health, the university has got its own health centre with its own doctors and its own nurses. So if somebody is actually not feeling well, then they can go to that health centre. Equally, if they live off campus, there are health centres pretty much in every area in the UK, and they have to go and register when they get to the UK with those health centres. We'll tell them all about that during Block 0. Also on campus, there is a testing centre, a COVID testing centre, and there is going to be a hotline. And if anybody is not feeling very well, or they feel they really do want to have a test for a particular reason, they'll be able to ring that hotline. It's a 24-hour hotline for students, and then they'll be able to book to go and have a test. So all of that is provided on campus, so not something for people to really worry about. Now, obviously, the students have already had lots of pre-departure information, and more is going to be on its way. So I think the critical thing for you is to constantly say to students, have you checked your UE email? Have you checked your welcome portal? Because obviously you can't do that. You've got students going to universities all over the country. So they must take responsibility for doing that. I just wanted to say this because I think this is important to remember. Although we've got lots of courses, and particularly nearly all of our undergraduate courses starting this month, the reality is all of our postgraduate provision is either starting this term in a few cases, and even when it is starting this term, it is being repeated again in January. So I just wanted to share with you and remind you that there is all of the courses here shown on this slide that are on offer for students who want to actually travel and go in January. The only course that I think is actually full for January, in fact, I think it was an entry this term, was Facade Engineering. Yes, it was a September entry, and that course is full. But the others have still got spaces, and so applicants for those courses is still available, and we'll be looking at doing the CASs in October. So I guess we've got about another month, really, in which people can apply for January courses. Let's just talk a little bit about getting to the UK. This is the exciting bit now. So the students done the stuff around their visa and their CAS, and they're going to get to the UK. And again, this is to help you. And actually, I think this will apply for all UK universities. It's not just going to be the University of the West of England. Well, this bit is just us, because this is our airport pickup dates. And these are all from London Heathrow. Now, again, once your student has got their CAS, they've registered, they've paid their deposit or their fee, they will have had a communication from the university asking them to send through their flight details and the time that they're arriving in the UK. What we're asking is if they can possibly manage it, it would be great if they could arrive on one of these dates in October and November. And the reason it would be great is because on those days, we have 3 buses a day at 8:30, 11:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon. So it kind of will match with any flight arriving in the UK, and they'll be able to get one of those coaches. However, don't worry. If a student cannot get to the UK on one of those dates, we're going to try our best to arrange transport for them. But the only way we know that they're arriving and that they need transport is if they fill in the form. So the same advice, I'm going to keep saying this advice throughout this session, they must look at their UE welcome portal. They've got to keep looking. They've got to keep checking their emails. I know it's a bit boring for them, and it gets a bit frustrating at times. And I know students get worried as well. They think, oh, I haven't had that email, but things will come down that line. If anybody has a registration problem or a problem with their portal, really important that you get onto us, because actually there is an email address in the UK that we can contact and get those things resolved. But anyway, there's the airport pickups. Really important for people to know. No charges, it's all included, it's all free. And so please take a note of those. And don't worry, we're recording this webinar, and obviously you can have these slides afterwards. Now, there are lots of things that happen when students get into the UK. And I think this is really important things to do. But before I talk about that, just one thing about arriving at the airport. I'm told at the moment that in the UK, students who are arriving are taking up to 3 hours to actually get through immigration. That's because there's social distancing in the actual passport halls, the halls where people have to enter the country. Obviously, everybody's visa, the vignette that's in their visa, is actually checked. And generally, the students have to have a bit of a discussion with the immigration officer who's there. They have to say, where are you going to study? And one of the things that they will have to have done is they will have to have completed a form before they fly, which actually indicates where they're going to be living in the UK. Now, don't worry, that's going to be provided to the student. The airline is responsible for that, but they will have to present that when they actually get into the UK. They have to know where they're going to be staying. That's part of the self-isolation rules. Of course, it's really important when people actually get to the UK that they've done things like checked on where they're staying, on actually checked on their contracts, that they have all that information. And the one thing I find students often do is they pack these sorts of essential things in their big suitcase. And of course, they're going to need it at the immigration desk. So it's really important that any papers they need are actually in the bag that they carry onto the flight with them. Okay. Thinking about registration and ID, we can do registration online. So the important thing, as I've said, keep on saying it, they've got to go to their My UE address, and they have to on that keep updating it. So as soon as they know where they're living, they've got to update it on that registration document. I don't need to go through it, it's ever so straightforward. They can just work through that as they get that. However, yesterday I was talking to a student whose registration document ran into a slight problem. And one of the problems that they might face comes to where they put a tick about how they're going to pay their fee. And they have a choice to tick whether they're going to pay the whole fee or whether they're going to pay in installments. Please tell the students, tick they're going to pay the whole fee. Whatever they're going to do, please get them to tick that box. And the reason for that is that if you tick pay by installments, the system then asks for your UK bank account. And of course, they will not have a UK bank account. That's going to be corrected in the next couple of days, but you know technology, it can take a long time. So if you do get a student say, oh, I want to tick my registration about how I'm going to pay, and it just won't let me do it. If they tick the box to say, I will pay the whole fee, they will have no problem. It will go straight on. These are the dates in the Welcome Hub when students will actually be able to get their visa and passport checks, but they'll be told all of this. So the student has got into the UK. Now, I'm going to come back to all the visa issues in a minute. So I know this is a little bit back to front, but I will talk about all the visa issues in a little while. What I want to now cover is, we'll assume they've got their visa, they've got to the UK, they've met their airport pickup, they've been taken all the way to Bristol, they're in their accommodation, they're obviously self-isolating, and don't worry that when it comes to registration, if a student says, well, how do I register if I'm self-isolating? The registration runs over a month, and so they just do the self-isolation, and after that period, they do their registration. Remember, they will have done their pre-registration online. So here we are, the student is at the university. Now, there are lots of ways of traveling to the university other than our airport pickup, but for India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, I'm not going to suggest those. I'm going to suggest we organise the airport pickup for the students, because these are public transport options, and the public transport options are probably not such a great idea when people have got to self-isolate on arrival. But there are options there, and we can help get discounts for the students if they want it. So the student is now going to actually have to think about registering. And this is the first point that I think is really important. The students, when they get their visa, they get a sticker, a vignette in their passport, which allows them to enter the UK over, at the moment, a 90-day period. Now, when they get to the UK and they get to the university, they have to then get their biometric residence permit for the period of their visa. Now, the thing is, you can collect this either at a post office or, and this is the point that's important, at the university itself. So I think it's really key, if the student asks you, again, it's going to come through online for them, they're going to have to tick the box, and they're going to actually say, where are you going to get your BRP, your biometric residence permit? We have to ask that question. They have to tick the box, if they're sensible, to say the university, because they're obviously going to register at the university, so they turn up for their registration and they will get their permit at the same time. If not, they're going to have to register at the university, and then they're going to have to find the post office where their permit is ready for them. Some visa holders will be told to register with the police. It's only some, and so if that advice is given, that's something that the student has to check out. I've mentioned registering with the doctor. The students can either register with the health centre, actually at UWE, or they have to register with a doctor in the community. Every doctor's surgery is used to doing this. You just turn up, you go to the receptionist, and they will actually get you to fill in a form. You have to show your visa, of course, because the visa actually means that you've paid the health charge, and then they're registered. And again, opening the bank account, all this information on the money advice web pages. People do have to open a bank account, but of course, before they get to the UK, it's really important that people do have some money that they can access. So I think those cards, you know, those travel cards where you can put some money on and actually have those, or a credit card, is really, really useful. Because if you do have a bank that gives you a bank card, do make sure that that is one that can be used in international ATMs. So much to take in here, isn't there? Now, these are the programs that are operating at the moment. You know, it's all online, but this is the program that's gone out to all the students. It gives you a bit of an idea about all the activities that are happening over the next few weeks. So, you know, at the end of the day, the students can already start to get quite excited about the program and what is happening. This is the induction program. If they miss any of this, it's not critical, but it's just great information and a great opportunity to meet other students, because they'll be tuning in online and meeting lots of people from around the world. Let's give you a little bit of background on visas, because there's so much to take in there, isn't there? So much that I've talked about, but I'll do a quick summary towards the end of the session. So thinking about visa and visa updates, I'd like to start by just talking about the CAS. So as I've said, we've almost stepped back now, haven't we? This is the point where many of you I know are involved in supporting the students at the moment. Now, the CAS, of course, is the university's electronic sponsorship, if you like, of the student. It is the university saying that the student has met all the requirements, has paid the required fee, and it actually has got a bank statement that actually proves they have all the money that is available. And there's the list that is there below. Now, for India, Nepal and Sri Lanka, the point that is really critical is about point number 4, really. India, Nepal and Sri Lanka for finance are considered, I'm afraid, what the immigration authorities call high risk areas. This is where bank statements will be checked very thoroughly. And very sadly, this week, we had someone who had their visa refused. And I'll give you an example. In this case, they had actually provided all the money available, but it was in a bank account in their husband's name, and the student's CAS, of course, that's actually going forward is in the name of the student. Now, we do bank statement checks, but of course we're not perfect. Mistakes can be made. So it's really important for you to work with the student as well to make sure that they have got their funds in place, that they do comply with the visa rules. But can I say to you, please do not submit the bank statement evidence to go forward to get the CAS before it has been checked by our team in India. It's absolutely critical that we've checked and said, yep, that bank statement is okay. Now, another thing that actually affects a number of students is the ATAS, the ATAS certificate. This is only in a few subjects, mainly postgraduate, and it's where the UK deem that they want some security checks on the student. And it tends to be in areas such as perhaps engineering or electronics or aeronautics. Now, I think we have just a few cases of that and students have sorted it out, but it is important that actually to get the CAS, you have to have that ATAS certificate. So there's the list. Again, you can look at that afterwards when you've got time to yourself. But the critical thing again, please, please, please do make sure that the CAS check is done by our team in the India office. And I know it's frustrating because it's going to take us a couple of days to do that check before it goes off to the UK and the CAS is issued. But if we get the CAS right, it's half the way of actually helping the student get their visa. And here we are, a little bit about the finance requirement. You've got to have this amount of money for 9 months or more study. You've got to have the amount of money that is required for paying the rest of your tuition fee. So the bank statement can't say that you've only got £9,135 if you've still got, say, £10,000 to pay on the fee. It's got to have those both there. Now, at the end of the day, all of the financial documents have to be uploaded, but this is key, the 28-day period. The 28-day period in terms of that money being in the account. In other words, you can't put it into the account and actually then the next day apply for the visa. It has to be that. But of course, equally, when you apply for the visa, the student, the information from the bank can't be more than 31 days old. So it's a very tight period. You've got to have the money in the account for that month, the 28 days. And again, I'm not going to go through all the regulations about what should be said about the account. This is why we check it with you. But then again, they have to then use, after getting the CAS, that document for their visa application within 31 days. Now it mentions about using parents' accounts, but remember, if that happens, if a student's doing that, they have to submit the birth certificate, they have to have the letter of consent, you know, they have to know that mum or dad is happy to pay those fees. But lots to think about there, lots to take in. Just consult our team. Please make sure that you've done that. I think I've probably stressed that too much. Before we talk about visa changes as well, I'd just like to say a couple of things about when the student applies for their visa. So they've now got the CAS. They're really happy. I've got that. I'm now making my application through the VFS centres to actually have my visa. Now, we've just had a student refused. I'm making it sound like we've had lots of students refused. Actually, we've only had two refusals. I've mentioned one, which was about the finance, easy to put right. But the second one was quite shocked because they got a call from the visa authorities in the UK and they were given a credibility interview. They failed that interview. Now, can I say to everybody, the UK authorities this year are not interviewing everybody, but what they are doing is, if you like, doing spot checks. So they're just picking out a number of visa applications. They give that student a call. They ask them some questions. Those questions are often about Bristol, where they're going to study, what are they going to study, where did the money come from? They'll ask about where they perhaps were educated before, just general questions. But we actually were quite shocked. Students were actually asked in a recent interview to spell some words, actually spell the words in English. They were being tested on their English ability. So it's absolutely critical that students are aware they may have a credibility interview, and it's absolutely critical that they prepare themselves. They must know about the university. They must know where they're going to live. They must know about the course they're going to study. And more important than anything, they have to confidently be able to speak English. If you have a student that you are going to encourage to actually go forward with their CAS, but you know when you speak to them that they really struggle to speak basic English, this is going to be cruel and it's difficult, but I do have to say to you, you should recommend to them that they don't continue at this time, that they defer their entry to a later time. Okay, enough about all of that. Let's actually think ahead, because there are going to be lots of changes coming in on October the 5th, although I don't think the changes are quite as difficult as people imagined. The first thing that now has been confirmed, we were waiting for it to be absolutely confirmed legally, is that the 2-year, what we used to call post-study work visa, it's now called the graduate route, has now been confirmed. So any student who graduates next summer or after next summer will be able to stay in the UK for 2 years, and they'll be able to work in any job at all. There's no skill level, no requirement, it can be any job, and that means they can stay in the UK. However, they do have to apply for a separate visa to be able to stay that 2 years. They'll be able to do that in the UK, and we've got a visa team actually at the university who's going to help the students. So not something to worry about, but it's really important that the students really use that advice when they're at the university. Now, can we also say, lots of people have asked us this question, well, I'm doing some of my course online. Does that mean I won't be able to do the graduate route? Absolutely not. If you are graduating from a UK university in the summer of 2021, you will be eligible for this new route. Now, I don't know if people realise this, but there's always been the opportunity to stay and work in the UK. This is a Tier 2 visa, as it's currently called, but it meant that you had to do skilled work. And that generally meant that people had to earn, I think it's £24,000 now. It had to be a really high skilled graduate type of job, and then the employer could sponsor you. There's also the opportunity to get a visa for working experience. There are actually authorised placements. And again, we have a placement service at the university that might help students if they want to do that, although I suspect most will want to do the 2-year visa. And then there is another visa. If somebody wants to start up their own business, there is an opportunity to do that. So lots of surprises there, I think. And if you want any more information, then you can contact the immigration team. And again, here's the email, and you'll be getting these slides, so you'll be able to look at that. But I did mention some changes are coming into play on October the 5th. Well, the good news is that really, I think the changes for international students are more in the name than anything else. So for instance, the Tier 4 study visa is no longer going to be called a Tier 4 visa, it's a student visa. And as it is now, students have to collect points to actually be eligible for that visa. You know, you have points for finance, points for actually satisfying the qualifications. All of that is changed, but the point structure is different. So it will look different. But actually, I just want to assure you there's nothing to worry about. The normal international kind of rules for applying for a visa apply, but different language, different names. The other thing to say is that the health surcharge is increasing. So the visa fees are remaining the same, but the health surcharge is going up in price. So that might affect some of the January starters unless they get their visa organised as early as possible. That's going to be difficult this year, of course, because with CAS only being issued in October, it looks like they have to apply and actually pay the new health surcharge. Let's go over all of the things we've been talking about today. There's so much, isn't there, to take in, and I'm so conscious when I do these webinars, information, and it just leads to you having a lot of questions. But I just want to assure you that the whole team, Nyati and the whole team, Ranjita, Angel, Jansi, Mukesh, all of our team, Nashif, everybody is actually working for UWE to try and support you. I try and answer as many emails as I can, but bear in mind, I'm covering the whole of Asia, so I do get a lot of emails, so sometimes that's challenging. We have got a big office in KL, we have got the teams in the UK. We always try to get back to you as quickly as possible, but as I say, there are only so many hours in the day, and when we're getting many thousands of inquiries, sometimes it's challenging to get back to you as quickly as we'd like to. But let's just summarise where we're up to. I think these are the key things. The first thing is students booking their flights and telling us when they're going to arrive in the UK, and if they can they actually get to the UK when we're having those airport pickup dates? That would be incredibly helpful. The next thing to really be clear about, we're really trying our very best to make sure that the self-isolation for students is managed from the point where they're picked up at the airport to the point that they're in accommodation, that they're going to have a good experience, they're going to make sure that they're fed, they are going to have access to health services, they are going to be able to study their course online whilst they're self-isolating. And the other thing to say about the university is, you know, yes, university life is going to be a bit different, but there are still 30-odd thousand students. There are still all the activities that go with being students, but I guess they're going to be organised a little bit differently, just as it is across the whole world. There are things we, of course, have not been able to send to the students yet. Situations keep changing. And so all I can say to you is that as soon as we have more information, we will send it out. And you know what I'm going to say? It's really important for those students to keep checking their welcome, their UE welcome portal, their emails. If they don't check, then they're not going to know. If you do get a student who comes to you with a question, drop us a line. We will quickly get back to you about the information. Just a reminder that when they talk about, well, what's my learning going to be like? Well, they are going to have a bit more of online learning than they would have done in the past, because lectures are going to have to be delivered online. Those events, which were very big groups, have to be online. But other teaching is as normal. They'll actually get all the benefits of being on a fantastically resourced campus. Don't forget, you'll be able to get a copy of this webinar. That's not a problem. And again, don't forget, if you want to get in contact with any of us about any issue, then you can do. Our email is actually south.asia@ue.ac.uk, but you know all that because your agent's with us already. But equally, you can contact me, and my email is just my name and then UWE, or of course, you can go to the partners site. And again, that's people in the UK who will try and help you with advice. But again, as I've said, we're getting many thousands of emails at the moment from across the world. So we try and get through those, and we try and do them in the order we receive them. If you have got a question, I would say 9 out of 10 of those questions can be answered by going onto our website and actually going to the frequently asked questions section of the website. It's under COVID-19, And there it is. There's the website. Go to the frequently asked questions. And I think all the things I've talked about today, visas, getting visas, self-isolation, getting to my accommodation, how will I book my flight, not my flight, my actual airport transfer, all of that information is there in the frequently asked questions. So for you, sat in your office or at home and advising a student, quite often that's the quickest way to find out the information you need. Of course, people can also go to these national organisations, and when they go to the national organisations, they can get advice there. That's all online as well. And I think that can be really helpful. But at the end of the day, we hopefully locally will try to advise you the best we can. I think most of it is pretty much common sense, but there is, as we've said, quite a few little technical hoops to go through. And I'm going to say it again, I really do want our students to get their visas. And it seems to me, in my experience of working for the last 10 years of covering the Asia Pacific regions of the region, there are really only two reasons why students do not get their visa. The first one is there's a mistake in the finance papers. There's something wrong with what has been submitted as a bank statement. And nearly always it's something wrong with the name on that statement or who it is that is actually, that statement is referring to. It's nearly always that error. Very rarely is it an issue about having enough money, but sometimes people do calculate that wrongly. But that's why the bank statement checking with our team is absolutely critical. And the second thing is always on these credibility interviews. And I'm always a bit surprised when a student says to me, I failed because when they asked me about where I was going to study and I said about Bristol, and they said to me, well, why did you choose Bristol? And I say something like, oh, because I think it's a nice place. That isn't good enough. They need to know a little bit about Bristol, and they could just look that up on Google. And of course, they need to know about the course they're studying. It's no good just saying, I'm doing the MBA, because you're going to be asked, why are you doing an MBA? And you're going to be asked, in fact, what does that MBA involve? Now, the student can do all of this research on the UWE website. Everything they need is there. So do tell the students to get prepared for their visa interview. Well, I certainly have talked for a long time and given so much information that I'm sure it's all been a little bit confusing. So we have got an opportunity, obviously, for you, and I can see from the chat box, people have been putting questions down. And so we are going to try and answer as many of those questions as possible. But the important thing to actually think about is really always coming back to us and saying, I have got a question. I would like to know what's going on. And so let me just have a quick look at the question and answers that have been put in the chat box first. I know that many of them have been answered already. The Bachelor Business programs in January, bad news on that, I'm afraid. In January, the only business courses that are available are programs that are year 3, they're top-up programs. So they are for students who already have undertaken study in a university. They may have their degree in India, Nepal, or Sri Lanka, or they may have completed, say, 2 or 3 years of that degree, and they want to be considered to go and top it up in the UK. This year, there are no business degrees available. And then the question about the English proficiency and the points that's there. At the moment, a lot of people are asking about this. Will IELTS be compulsory? Absolutely not. The situation we've been told at the moment is that the tests that are currently available will continue to be able to be used for the new visa, and that includes the UWE English Placement Test. Now, that UWE English Placement Test is available online every Wednesday. We call it English Test Wednesday, and that's because every Wednesday we are testing students. And if they pass our placement test, that is absolutely fine for their visa. But of course, we have to book people onto that test. And so you must approach our team to ask for a student to be tested. We can't just imagine that they want to be tested. We actually have to know that information. But at the moment, there is no change in terms of the English proficiency test. However, my inside information tells me that there are a couple of tests that are offered currently that may be discontinued in the future, but they're not UE tests, they're tests from other organisations, but it's not for me to say who they are, so we'll have to just follow that. And then, do they have to pay for the test? Absolutely not, because at the end of the day, we're delighted if a student can come to the university and if they pass the test, and we always let the students try the test, and if they don't do very well, they can have another go. If a student in the future really needs help with their English, we do offer, again online currently, pre-sessional English programs, courses that are run. They generally cost about £1,500, and students can book onto those courses. So if we have a student that struggles with English, there's always another opportunity. I don't know if anybody else has got any particular question to ask, but I guess...
Yes, hi Ray, thank you so much for this wonderful session. Most of the questions that we got was in relation to this new 70 points being introduced. So most of them are asking that. So thank you so much for that clarification. And so just to reiterate again, so our English proficiency test is going to continue for the January intake.
It certainly is. For January, it's as it is currently. We can't promise, of course, what's going to happen in 1-2 years' time. We can only say as it is at present. And under the new visa regulations in October, the UE placement test is still acceptable.
Great, great. And yeah, so how is this? So basically, this 70-point system is not going to affect the students who are going for the January intake.
No, in fact, most of the changes in the new student visa route actually applies to students in Europe, because students in Europe in the future are going to be classed as international students, where in the past, because they were part of the European Union, they had a different visa. They had an easier route into the UK. Now it's going to be more difficult for them. So for India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, absolutely no considerable change. I think it's just a different point system, just a different way of being organised, and we cannot see anything to worry about. So obviously we're going to actually come out with a briefing very soon, and so we will send that note round so people can have it in writing, because we're just looking at that at the moment. Our visa team in the UK are just double checking and triple checking that we haven't missed anything, but I think it's all pretty good news.
Great, great, wonderful. That's good to hear. Right, so I think that's it for the questions. Yeah, most of them were based on this itself. So thank you so much, Ray, for the wonderful session. I'm pretty sure it was very, very informative for all the agents. And of course, we are here, the entire team is here to help them out in future.
That's fantastic, Ranjita. And can I just say once again to everybody, you know, do contact our team, but also be kind, because our team are very busy people, and they, you know, all I know is they will promise to get back to you, but there are only so many hours in the day, so they'll get back to you as soon as they can. And they're doing a fantastic job helping you. And can I just say to everybody who's been actually with the webinar today, that you too are doing a fantastic job, because I know how busy you are as agents and getting things organised. Now, can I just do a little promotion, Ranjita, because we're going to have another webinar on September the 29th, and that's going to be looking forward. That's going to be talking about some new courses, some new opportunities for students. We're going to be joined by one of our members of staff who's going to be talking about some of the things in the business area, and that's going to be great. But also, and I think this is key, we'll be talking a little bit about when you can claim commission. So I thought that might just get you to actually tune in on September the 29th. And so I hope you'll join us then. And thank you for being with us today. And for me, because of where I am in the world, it's time for me to go and get something to eat. I don't know about everybody else, but I will finish my coffee first. So all the best to everybody. And we look forward to welcoming you in Bristol as soon as that is possible, which who knows when that will be, but never mind, we will in spirit be welcoming you anyway. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Ray.